This segment is brought to you by St. Martin and Bourke. Know your rights. And welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Martin Falls. And of course, over the years, we brought you a lot of stories. And what we always try to do with some of these important stories is lay it out for you, be factual about it, try to give everybody a chance to come on and state their side. You may have read in the local paper, or you may have heard around town that Terrebonne Parish, the administrative offices, were scammed on a payment that took place. And we're going to talk about that particular scam, how it arrived, how they paid it, different things of that nature. And we're going to try to give you the facts of the matter. Right now, I want to introduce our guest. We have the Chief Communications Officer of the parish, Robbie Lee. Good to see you, Robbie.
How you doing, Martin?
Doing good, thank you. Police Chief Travis Terrio, who's been working hard on the Hero Fest, and I appreciate you taking time to come talk with us.
Thank you, sir.
All right, let's do this. This is going to take some time. It's confusing, to say the least. There was a check that was issued by Terrebonne Parish. Dude, let's call it a vendor, I guess somebody who sent in a bill or whatever would occur. Let's start with the very basics. Chief, I think you're very knowledgeable in this. I'll go to Robbie for more of the logistical stuff. Can you give us a date on when this all started?
So the investigation would have started around June 13th. Was actually contacted immediately by, I think it was Robbie that contacted me and let us know what was going on. Sent a detective straight to the administration, and they started working the investigation. Now, one thing with this type of investigation, they're very slow, and it's very much, it's methodical because it's all subpoena and search warrant based, right? So you kind of at the mercy of the bank or whoever you're subpoenaing to get your information back. I think it was somewhere around $130,000. I don't know the exact amount that was supposedly or that was dispersed. Now, whether it was a check or direct deposit, I don't recall. But one thing I would like to add at this time, that this is still a working investigation also. So the detective started an investigation, issued some subpoenas and search warrants just based on the information that we were able to receive from our IT and our financial department. And because of the things that they did and the details that they were able to provide to our detectives, they were able to get a search warrant and subpoenas that were able to accurately show where that money was transferred to. That led to the arrest of a female, or a warrant being issued sometime in August. Towards the end of August, I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe August 29th, I believe, she was taken into custody in Sarasota, Florida. And at the beginning of September, I think maybe, before the 10th, I believe she was transferred back into Terrebonne Parish. When she arrived in Terrebonne Parish, she refused to cooperate with us to answer any questions. And in doing so, that's greatly slowed our investigation down to give us the answers we need, because we do not feel that she is operating by herself. And that's one of the biggest things. We have where the money ended. We can show that there were almost $300,000 that went into her account that day. So Terrebonne Parish is not the only victim of this scam that they were pulling. And these scams are getting more and more sophisticated. But because of the checks and balances that were in place, and this did get caught, the parish was able to recover actually a large quantity of the money and get it back. I think probably close to $100,000 is what the parish was actually able to get back into the account. We tried getting search warrants executed in Florida, but we were not able to do so. They just, for whatever reason, Florida said they couldn't do it. So we had to wait until the cellular device was transported back on this end, and we obtained a search warrant for it at that point in time, because this is where the crime occurred. The cell phone was then transferred into the custody of the Louisiana State Police, And for the last couple of weeks, they've actually been trying to get into the cell phone to see what's in there. We've had communication with them because they're also using Secret Service to try and get into this phone. And just based on the information I have, I don't have much faith at this point in time that we're going to be able to recover anything from the phone. But we're still very much hopeful because, like I said, we don't just want to get the person that obtained the funds. We want to know how it happened, and we would love to get everybody because, like I said, she didn't operate on her own. And without getting into this device, it makes it more difficult. And, one reason that I'm not a fan of coming out with things up front is because we don't know all the details up front, and it's a working investigation. There's a potential that you could have suspects in Terrebonne Parish, which is why you don't want to come out with any information and kind of play this thing close to your chest to figure out what happened, and how it happened. But right now, we just don't have that information to give as far as who else is involved besides the lady in Florida, Miss. The last spelling of the last name is NGO. I don't recall her first name off the top of my head, but. And then on top of it all, we also have a language barrier that's also providing difficulty in dealing with this.
Okay, let me turn. I'm going to come back to that because I know there was a public records request made. I think it was early this week or
Yes.
at the end of the week. I think maybe Monday if my facts are correct. And then we started receiving things after that. But Robbie, take me back to, let's say, June 13th. Now, you as the communications officer, chief communications officer, you get all this information. It starts coming to you probably many times a day.
Yes.
You're getting infiltrated with a lot of information. What was happening? Your initial reaction, your initial involvement, what took place?
So when I first got the call from Candace, I was actually on vacation. I just got home from vacation. I got a call from Candace, I want to say about 8:30 in the morning. And within 22 minutes, I was at the office. Grabbed Brian Rodrigue, who is our IT manager, who IT is also under communications. And we went to work. We started pulling emails, looking at logins. And when we dug into it, I will say I really want to commend everybody who was involved. Every team member that was involved in this did a phenomenal job from start to finish. They've done a great job handling the stress of this situation in this time. It's been 2 months going on 3 that this has kind of been floating around. And they've done a good job handling not only the stress that came along with it, but then the reaction to the thing as a whole. It is a stressful situation to be in for anyone. So I do want to just give them props for everything they did. And it also is a very sophisticated attack. You're starting to see a ramp up of these attacks over time. And one of the things that caught us off guard in the beginning was they had the real invoice from DOTD for the Valhalla, I believe it was the Valhalla Shared Use Path project, which was a real project that was put on the books by DOTD that we had to pay our, I believe, 10% match to, which is a very common practice. Paying them it was through an ACH deposit, not through a check. And that is a very common scheme because it's a little bit harder. When you pay by check, it's usually mailed, so you have a little bit more time to catch what you did. Through ACH, it's a little more instant. But they caught it within, I think it was 24, 48 hours of making the ACH payment that something was awry, something was amiss. Notified all parties, notified myself. Once they notified me, I called Travis, got Travis involved. We called GOSEP, which is the Governor's Office of Homeland Security. They helped us out with some stuff. We called the banks, had a lot of stop payments on everything. We stopped payments for, I think, 3 or 4 days through our bank accounts until we can kind of get a hold of everything and kind of gain traction on everything. And then after that, we really handed everything over to Travis and his guys, because at that point we had gathered all the information from the attempt and what had happened in the initial scam. So his guys could then go in and do the actual investigation from a law enforcement level to see how much of this funds we could recover. We have recovered, I believe it's $97,452.02. It's somewhere around that number, which has been pretty much etched in my brain since the day we have received it back. But it's just, it's still ongoing now. There's roughly about 30 grand still unaccounted for that we're still actively trying to pursue to pull back. And this is something that's going to go on forever for us now because we had systems in place to stop this from happening.
Yeah, let me ask you this. I've called for every council person. I've talked to most of them. I know even as I was coming on the desk, I was getting a call from Kevin Champagne. I apologize that I couldn't pick up, but I was already into this interview. Across the board, they're fairly shocked, I think, at this point. Some are appalled, some are shocked. Their emotions vary on this particular thing. I guess my question would be, how many people signed off? And my obvious question would be, why didn't someone pick up the phone and call DOTD and say,
Yeah.
is this a legit invoice or whatever? What happened
So-
then? And give me the chain.
So I can give you that's not a problem. So we did an employee was on vacation when the original email was sent. With the real invoice from DOTD. And I think that's that's a very key component to this whole thing. This was a real invoice with a real project number for the perfect amount with all of, it was the actual invoice from DOTD. We still, at this point in time, have zero clue how they received that. It did go to that employee, then forwarded over to another employee because it was a match. It was our match that we were responsible for this project. That employee began it. Then they asked for an ACH wire. That employee then questioned it back to the original employee. That employee then reached out to DOTD, but through the original email chain, which went to the known scammer. And that person, the response to that was that yes, they had switched financial institutions, and that's why there was a weird discrepancy with the mix-up. And then after that, it went through its normal process of going through an ACH, which then goes to another employee who, again, it was a chain of events and a perfect time and a perfect storm all wrapped into one, because not only did we have an employee who was on vacation when it went in, but we had an employee who was in their position for roughly 2 weeks. And then the employee it went to after that was again roughly in their position within the last 2 to 3 weeks, because we had a retirement and some employees moved around. And everything looked legit. It looked real. It was very sophisticated. It was arguably, in my tenure of doing this, probably the best ones I've ever seen in my time. To the untrained eye, it's perfect. To somebody like me, I was able to spot it within a minute or two, realize what was wrong with it, and pointed out grammatical errors. The emails didn't match. The phone number was off by only 1 digit. The last digit was off by just 1. For the original DOTD person's contact info. It really was just like a accumulation of things that just kind of snowballed into what we had happen.
The chain of command again. Who was in charge of seeing it to begin with? And from what I'm hearing on the outside, I could be wrong, but tell me if I'm wrong. Probably 3 or 4 people saw the invoice and had to make a call on whether it was legit. Is this correct? And take me through that. And on the end of that is my question. I think they had some people that were reprimanded or demoted. Tell me that process.
So it was a real invoice like that. So to say it went through employees' hands to figure out if it was real or not is a little different, because it was real. I don't want to get into a personnel matter because that's not my cup of tea. Mm-hmm. Getting into what happened with employees, but I can, say that there were corrective measures and personnel matters that were taken care of and handed down after this problem occurred. There were reprimands. I don't want to talk about with employees or anything like that. I don't want to state names. I understand
that it is a personnel matter. Understand.
Yeah, and Colin, look, I was called by the courier. Our Houma today, I didn't disclose names to them, but I can confirmed there were personnel matters that were taken after the fact.
So it ran through the chain, but I guess at the end of the line is Miss Malden. She's
Correct.
in charge. Did she put her eyes on it, and was she one of them that okayed? Who signed?
Yeah,
sheets?
so she is the final signature on any ACH transfer. And then again, we've changed how that happens now also, because she used to just get a stack and go through them. The problem was we weren't in the habit of attaching where, like, the wire location was. So we've changed that to where it has to show where the, not only if any, like, one of the things we've done is if anyone wants an ACH wire from now on who's out of the norm that we've never done an ACH wire for, or if they want an ACH wire going forward, we need to speak to the individual on the phone, and they have to send us an email from their email before we would ever submit a wire ever again. So that has to be checked multiple times. And then at the end, when it gets to Candace would do the same, would check whatever that vendor is who wants an ACH deposit to make sure that that is the actual place it's supposed to be going. But just like mostly like all of in my department, I sign every invoice that comes across my desk. Candace does the same in hers, just like Noah does the same in his, Travis does the same in his. Like, we all sign our invoices at the end of the day.
Yeah, so we go through the process. So on June 13th, what steps were being taken at that point? Where was the, oh my God, moment where everybody got together and said, this can't happen again, or we've just been scammed? What happened in that way, and what were y'all doing at that point to make sure it never happened again?
Yeah, it was pretty instantaneous. Like, it was, we obviously triaged the situation, right? Like, we went into triage mode, make sure we got HPD involved as much as they can. His detectives did a phenomenal job. Really got to give kudos to Travis's team. They were in there quick, fast, and in a hurry. Asked every question that they thought they needed, stuff they even thought they may not need. And directly after that is when a larger group met together and started to then put in place what would be the new process and practice for doing anything like this again, to make sure like this would never happen. From my end, which is the IT end, we implemented not only an up ramp in phishing training, but we have a software that allows us to pull out fake phishing emails. And we can word them however we want. And then it reports back to us to who fails and who doesn't. That way we could look at who does fail, who doesn't, and we can get them extra training and explain to them why it was a phishing email, how it happened. Because it's better if they fail a fake one for us than they would if they failed a real one and something like this happened again. We've ramped that up severely over the last 3 months. We've done in-house training. We had a lunch and learn. We've sat down with finance to go through a training through phishing emails and exactly what to look for. And the biggest thing to remember, like, when it comes to stuff like this, your biggest failure point is going to be a human, a person. Just because we do get bogged down with stuff. We do get busy. Life gets stressful. And stuff slips through the cracks in your normal everyday life. So I don't want to put any blame on the employees, because I can understand the failure. I can understand how it was missed. And I use failure very loosely, because I do not blame them for this happening, because this could happen to anyone. This could happen to me. It was very good, and they did everything they were supposed to. Now we've put stuff in place to make sure this never happens again. And, one of the biggest things I always talk about is when it comes to cybersecurity and IT security is it's not if you get breached or if you get hacked or if you fail a phishing attempt, it's when. When it happens, what do you do? Because it's going to happen to everyone eventually. It may happen one time in a year. It may not happen for 10 years. It may not happen for 30 years. But eventually it's you're going to get caught in a scam.
I hear the wind. I hear the wind. And look, I told you on the phone while talking to you, it could happen here. It could happen anywhere. Here's where I think, it becomes problematic. And I want to ask this. I got on the phone today and going through my notes, I called every single council person. I was unable to reach some of them, but I spoke with several of them. And not to quote anybody individually, I have their quotes, but I'll expound on that maybe in a later show. But to say they were shocked and dismayed, and the number one problem they had with everything was the fact that they didn't know. This was June 13th, and we're sitting on the news desk today. So 3 months plus into this, some of them are finding out for the first time. Shouldn't there have been at least an effort to get to the Budget and Finance Committee? Because this is a budget and finance problem. If you're missing 129,000 and some change, it's going to affect the budget. I don't know if maybe an executive session would have been in order, or just a call to some of the council budget committee to try to get it clear. Shouldn't they have known?
I think in hindsight, yes. We should have called an executive session. We should have, it's a very high stress moment. Brian's my IT manager, right? And IT is at the crux of this. And we have severely ramped up the IT department in Terrebonne Parish. And it's very stressful, right? Like, you never want to be the person who ends up in a news article, right? Like, because at the end of the day, it was a phishing email that got through, and a portion of that buck sits on my shoulders, right? And then I have an IT manager who, he's a great guy. He's a friend, who also feels like it sits on his shoulders. I think if I go back in time, and I think Travis would probably feel the same way, yeah, we call an executive session and explain to the council members what happened. But again, that day, I feel like I made 99 decisions. I made 100 decisions, and I made 99 good ones. And I feel like not getting the council up to speed on what was going on was the one bad one that day. Which is why we're in the position we're in right now, right? Like, and just having to speak about this and council members not knowing. I think you learn from those experiences. I don't think this ever happens again, not only from a phishing standpoint, but if anything ever happens like this again, I think the council, at least my recommendation would be to get them involved from the beginning. Because at the end of the day, they are an elected body of this parish, just like anyone else is, just like the sheriff is, just like the assessor is, just like the clerk of court is, just like Jason is, President Bergeron is. So yeah, I think the hindsight, we absolutely get in there and make sure they know from day one.
I want to say for the record that we did invite the parish president on today. I went through the chief communications officer to invite him on. And of course, he, I think, talked with both of you all to come on. Where was the parish president in all this? What was the communication like? Did you ever urge him to come forward and talk about it? Where did it bog down if you did?
I think that probably comes a lot from the police department, because whenever we have an investigation like this, we try and keep it close to our chest until we figure out exactly what's going on. Because, one of your biggest concerns at times is, your biggest fear would always be if it's internal, right? So we have to make sure that's not happening, which we know that's not happening once we're able to get these bank records and make arrests. I think one of the biggest problems with these investigations is you want to come out quickly. You want to come out with details, but unfortunately with a financial crime, it doesn't allow you to. I think that's the biggest problem. We didn't, and at times we would only tell them whenever there were big changes in the investigation. And the only thing, hey, look, just want to let you know we have an arrest warrant. Want to let you know we've identified the account. No specifics, nothing like that. They are the victims in this, right? But we still have to hold the integrity of that investigation, because we still have to question people, okay? We don't want information getting out because we still have to question people. We need to make sure that that information that we get from that suspect is coming from their own knowledge and not something that we said in the public, which is where we're at now. But like I said, just based on the latest turn of events, I would say within the last 24 to 36 hours and the information we're getting back from state police and Secret Service, that I don't have much faith that they're going to recover anything from the device. It does appear that somehow there's a possibility that that device was wiped remotely before it came into our possession, which is even more concerning, because that shows you how sophisticated this is if they were able to wipe this device remotely. What it takes to do that, I told you before, I'm not the technical guy, but it's very concerning to me when my investigator tells me that. We have not been able to 100% confirm that. And I can tell you that this is, as Robbie sits here on side of me, this is the first time he's hearing it. Because we haven't been able to get the report back from state police, but we just know what the appearance is right now as they're processing this evidence. And that is our biggest concern. And if that happened, we might not be able to get a lot of the answers we want, which would be where did this DOTD invoice come from? How did they get it? And the conversation between the suspect we have and the rest of the suspects involved. So if this investigation was able to run like some of our investigations, and we're able to open and close this thing in 3 days, we're not even sitting here today because we're able to give that information out quickly. But just because an investigation takes 3 months versus taking 3 days, we shouldn't change how we handle that investigation. You know, one thing that they can rest assured with the Houma Police Department, we're going to give 100%. There's always integrity involved in our investigations, and we're going to do everything we can to bring those people to justice. But if that investigation, the details, that investigation can't be released in that 4-day investigation, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to release details in that 3-month investigation, just because whenever you start getting banks involved in things like that, it is so slow because you're working at the mercy of others. And even worse when they're out of state. And look, and actually, this, I want to say, the subpoena couldn't be served locally. We had to send a detective all the way to Alabama, I believe it was, to go and serve it at the closest bank that would accept the subpoena on behalf of Florida. I suspect that's because of the way Florida works with jurisdictional or their regions with that bank, or it was the closest bank for that. I'm not sure, but I know we had to send that detective out of state just to go and serve that.
Let me ask you this, Chief, because when I'm talking to all the council people, they're kind of concerned and nervous too, because if this thing gets out into the public the wrong way, the public could perceive that they had knowledge of it and that they knew about it. So they're very concerned about that. I've been knowing you for a long time. You were, before you were chief, you were top-notch detective. You still are. So you're programmed to do police work. You go in, you get called in, you are looking at the police work. You're probably not seeing the politics of it all around. At any point, did the parish president or did Robbie through the parish president call you up and say, okay, Chief, I know you're doing your police work, but we got to tell at least a couple of members of budget and finance because it will reflect on them eventually?
No, if it was anything, it would have been me urging everyone not to say anything until we can figure out what's going on with this investigation, trying to protect the case. You know, and 100%, in order to do what's best for this community and best for the taxpayers and Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government, is to bring the suspects to justice. And we have to protect the integrity of the investigation in order to do that. And I don't want to release details on an investigation that I just don't know. And I can't, and I'm not going to, and you've been knowing me long enough, I won't speculate, you know, and you're right. You know, me and you've had conversations before on the politics side of things. And I definitely don't look at it from a political side. I look at it strictly from a law enforcement side and what we need to do to protect that investigation. And I don't want to come out with anything until I know all the facts, right? Because you come out with this too early until you figure out exactly what's going on. And if you look at it from, a political and the public side, it's going to make it look like, well, they don't know what they're doing. Well, and actually they do know what they're doing, because that's how we were able to solve this and recover these funds so quickly. So if anything, it would have been coming from my recommendation that, hey, we need to play this close to our chest until we figure out what's going on. Because you look, and you always have to think outside the box. By any stretch, do you think that it would be somebody local? No. Have we ever seen one of these local? No. But there is that chance that that cell could be operating within your own community. You know, and we have to make sure that the information that we're releasing isn't making it to those cells. Because like 9 times out of 10, you track these things far enough, more than likely this scam's probably going out the country.
Was it a concern ever to you that it could be somebody inside?
No,
Okay.
no. But you still have to handle it as such. And it's the same thing when you have a crime of violence and you know, all deaths, all suspicious deaths, whether it's a suicide or it is an obvious murder, you work that as a homicide until you prove it's a suicide, right? And maybe it's a bad analogy, but in this, you work a theft whenever you don't know where and how it happened, and everything is possible, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that we know, it was not internal.
Okay.
It was just, I think it appears that there was a human error that occurred listening to Robbie, but there are checks and balances that are in place. But let me tell you, there's $300,000 that was deposited into that account that day. Unfortunately, we're not the only ones. I say us, Terrebonne Parish is not the only ones that fell victims to these people, okay? Because they're working to defeat systems. They're working to defeat the barriers and defenses that people have put up to protect themselves from phishing schemes. And that's why we're constantly having to educate our employees. That's why we're having to keep up with the times. You know, we fell victim to it this time. The Terrebonne Parish as a whole fell victim to it this time. But guess what? There are many corporate organizations across this country that have all fallen victim to this, and they've had to do the same thing and put things in place to make sure it didn't happen again.
And you make a good point, but I think on a corporate level, people go, well, corporate is private
Yeah, correct.
money, and
Yeah.
this is public
Yeah.
money. Let me ask you, Robert, going back to you, because a lot of the council people I was talking to today were concerned that, well, if this happened once, did it happen 15 times? Did it happen 20 times? How are we supposed to know? We weren't involved in this one. How can we know? How do we know? Where's the truth lie? Any other incidences where the public right now needs to know that something happened?
I mean, we haven't had another phishing incident. Like, we've had multiple attempts, but this is the only one we've ever fallen for. This is the only one that's ever been able to get through the system and get all the way to the level it did.
Any other checks or any other scams or any other fraud that any?
I don't think so.
The transit. Yeah, there's, I mean, I don't know where y'all at on that investigation.
Take your time. You said transit. Is there one from transit?
How you forgetting this one? We did have one instance that the HPD has already handled. I believe the individual was taken into custody already. That an individual who worked as a relatively new individual in transit was cut. I don't know where y'all at in that investigation.
Oh, yeah, it was an internal theft that occurred, and the individual was cited for it.
That was with the government?
Yeah.
They frauded the government or whatever?
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
I think it was just as simple as he double paid himself, from recollection. You know, I don't that one just didn't stick out like this one
Yeah.
stuck out. That's why I was
Yeah.
kind of like,
I don't know what the
Yeah, my
details are.
question
Yeah.
would be, on how can he double, it was a he, I guess. He could double,
yeah.
I mean,
probably
and
have
and I think that's the concern is, how can they, are they infiltrating the system or what are they doing?
No, I mean, anybody who works for the parish gets cut a check the first time.
Okay.
like a normal individual. Like you would cut a normal check, which unfortunately has our routing number and account number on it. But we had systems in place that caught that like very extremely fast. It was taken care of. I don't know the exact details.
Was
but
he
it was
able to get
in-
any funds from the parish?
I'm not 100% sure.
And look, Martin, and if I could was able to recall the details on that incident, I'd tell you, I know it wasn't an astronomical amount. I know the checks and balances caught that system. I know our detectives looked into it. I know he was quickly charged with that investigation. I don't remember that being a huge amount.
Has there been a trial yet or anything on that yet?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. All
I
right.
don't think so.
So what you're telling me, so they have the number,
Yeah, it's
the
like when
number
you
on the
get
bottom of your check, like any check, and he was able to backtrack into that number and get into the system?
no, he was able to just from what I understand, hook it up to his credit card. Like when you hook up a payment account on your credit card, he was able to hook it up on his credit card and pay his credit card bill. From what I recall, through that, like just through a very, I mean, there was probably it's out of all the scams, it's probably the most unsophisticated one ever. There's no there's no fake emails. There's no logging into any backdoor systems. It's literally just having an account number and a routing number and being able to hook it up to his credit card to pay it off.
But unsophisticated, if it gets through to Monies,
Yeah.
Well, and look,
becomes a little more concerning.
and look, Martin, whenever he says transit, I have no clue where everybody works in parish government. So,
All right, yes, I got you. Yeah, and it's just, and I'm also talking on behalf of the council, because y'all know me well enough to know that, sometimes the council takes a lot of heat for a lot of things too. And rightly so over the years. We all get into situations where we're going to take heat for things we do. But if the council's unaware of it, I just want to make sure that the public knows they're unaware of it. They're not hiding anything. That they are literally unaware of what transpired. I know that Tanner McGee did public records requests. You would acknowledge that you got public records requests, and then I guess Colin Campbell of the Courier calls up, and I'm sure he could read public records requests.
He did public records requests himself.
Yeah. So, but now the information's coming out once the public records requests are made, but there was no information prior to that. So I guess my point would be, I think you alluded to it earlier. The biggest thing is that some people in the council, especially budget and finance, should have probably been brought in.
Yeah, you go back in time, and I mean, I think we do, a couple of things differently, right? But that's where you learn. I mean, nobody's perfect, myself included, and you do what you think is the best, which is, like I said, I feel like that day I made 100 decisions and 99 of them were good. And if I can go back in time and push on one topic, it would probably be to have that executive session, get Travis in there, his guys in there, let them explain what happened. But you move, it's almost like an out of body experience. Like you're moving so fast, but you really don't feel yourself move. It's like your hand moving. Like you don't really know, like you see it, it's moving, but you don't really feel it moving. You know it's doing it. And like it was just kind of like, I knew the motions I had to take, and Brian knew the motions he had to take. HPD knew the motions they had to take. And it was almost just like autopilot of just checklisting one thing after another. And that was just one thing we didn't.
As the communications chief, were you pushing for them to come public with it?
Yeah, we definitely had, I definitely had conversations internally, even talked to Travis about it. It was adamant that it was an investigation. We weren't going to come out and talk about it right away. I didn't push nearly as hard as I probably should have in that moment. I should have definitely pushed drastically harder than I did to come out. I try to give the council as much information as I can now, which I'm pretty sure any council member would agree to. If they call me and they ask me anything, I get it to them. Doesn't matter what it is. And it's just like one of those things that, you wish you can go back in time, but you can't. So we just have to live with the facts the way they are now.
Yeah.
And you really want to, and you want to control what's coming out, right? So you don't, you want to control the details that are coming out. You only want to release the meat and potatoes, and you can't release a full investigation until it's complete.
Well, I can say
Yeah.
that me and you have sat on here many times.
Right.
There've been many chiefs before you that have said, Martin, would you give me a couple of days because I'm still investigating? I say, yeah, but I think you would agree to, Chief, that probably the Budget and Finance Committee could have been brought
Well,
in.
yeah. So I look, and you also talked about the politics side isn't me, and I never even thought about. I didn't even think an executive session would be a possibility because, if I'm not mistaken, that has to stay in executive session, right?
It does.
So in something like that, yeah, I would feel comfortable releasing that because it has to stay in there, which I'd be fine with that.
Well, even if it
know.
stays in executive session, which
Yeah.
it's supposed to,
Yeah.
then the people on the council
Yeah.
are aware that it happens, so they're not shocked like they are today. They're going, okay,
Yeah.
here's the safeguards that are going on. So, and I think that's their biggest dismay, that they just didn't know. They're
Well,
blindsided.
And,
today.
and look, and we could be upset, and we can look back, and no matter what investigation we have, even the investigations I had as a detective that I was successful in, all the cases I had, I can always go back and look at that investigation and find something that I could have done even better, even though I was successful in that investigation. I would agree that maybe there could have been something that was done to bring everybody in safely and still protect the investigation, looking back, right? And I would also share some of that fault as well, But one thing that we can't lose sight of, we had somebody that came after the parish, and the suspect is what did this, right? The bad guys are what did this. And what everybody needs to know is we all need to stand and rest assured that we went after them and we caught them. Okay? And they need to know that, look, it doesn't matter what state you're in, we're going to find you. Okay? I am so proud of the work that these detectives did and how they put this thing together. It was impressive. I've worked these investigations as a detective, and I've never had the success that this detective had in taking this suspect into custody. We've worked many of these, and we've never had the success. So one thing I'm so proud of is that, yes, we were attacked, but yes, we went after them, and yes, we caught them. And the other thing we need to recognize is we recognize that we had some faults in this investigation and things we could have done better. But we didn't victimize the parish. The suspect did. And we went after him and we caught him.
Is this a local jurisdiction thing, or did he cross state, or she crossed state lines? So does it become a federal thing? What is it?
So
What is it?
It's going to be a local deal. What it takes to get to the federal level is a threshold. And look, and I don't know what the current threshold is, but I remember looking at these and going and praying, look, like, hey, can we just hand this over to Secret Service so we don't have to mess with it? But the threshold is extremely high to get federal authorities involved. And believe it or not, $130,000 doesn't reach that threshold to get them involved. They'll call you and give you some advice, or maybe give you a lending hand and say, hey, look, contact this person. But as far as them taking your investigation, this all had to be done by our local authorities, cooperating with local authorities, sending our local authorities to get her and extradite her back here.
And I'm a lot of councilmen are contacting me and giving me quotes, and I'm gonna bring that for another program. When you're dealing with this kind of thing, where does that loss come from? Let's say you didn't recoup any money. I'm just trying to paint a picture for the audience to know where their public funds are going. Let's say you hadn't recouped any of the 90,000. How is that accounted for in the budget? What happens?
So unfortunately, I'm not a budget
You're a
guru.
communications
I'm
guy.
a communications guy. I can tell you how to, switch a hard drive out on a computer, reprogram a computer, do anything with a computer. I could build a server for you from scratch. But how they're gonna reflect this in the budget would be a Candace question. which I'm going to tell you I've probably been told 3 times already, and for the life of me, now that I need to answer it, I'm drawing a blank. I know there were some actions taken to cover the remaining balance that we had lost, but that is wrapped up in a personnel matter, which again I don't. When it comes to we've had conversations about public records, and you know how I feel when it comes to personnel issues. So it's a little bit harder for me to talk about, not knowing the exact way to word it.
I'm just curious if y'all have an errors and omissions policy that if something goes wrong, it makes it up and it doesn't sting the public so much. Of course, it makes your premium go up on every occurrence, but something that would account for it. There's a lot of questions, and I wish Candace were here to answer, so I'd love to ask her some, but I guess the council could do that at the meeting.
I believe it'll probably be asked at the next council meeting. But at the same time, I could get an answer for you after this and get it to you, so at least you can have that.
You know, and from a law enforcement standpoint, I would hope it would be in the form of restitution from the suspect.
That'd be nice if we could get them all to do that.
Yeah,
Did they seize her account?
yeah, but I can tell you this much.
But everybody's going to take a chunk.
No, the 300,000 went in that day and left that day.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So that tells me there's somebody else involved.
Yes, sir.
Are y'all digging in?
Trying.
Okay.
But like I said, this is a long investigation, and you know, you run down these rabbit holes, and eventually you run out of leads. But I've had conversations with the detective, and we're exploring the idea and trying to see if we can't get a search warrant to push those funds a little bit further. I mean, those leads a little bit further as far as where those funds went, and maybe we could help solve some crimes that happened in some other jurisdictions as well. Because we know it's not us, but you know, we know that somebody out there got victimized, and maybe they didn't have the checks and balances in place to accomplish it, because it's obvious they didn't, because you have 300,000 that went out, the money comes back, Parish gets most of theirs back, and the rest of that money is unaccounted for, and we're the only one that's charged her. So somebody out there doesn't know she did it.
I'd
love
answers left. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to help those people and tell them who victimized.
Let me ask you this, Rob, because in covering stories for 42 years, there's always people on the periphery that are nervous. I'm sure they got people that were involved in the scam check that probably have never been in front of camera in their life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it trickles down, and probably IT, got people in IT, because it all goes through them. We're all used to being on camera and answering questions, but there's a lot of people, and I know a couple of them have told other people, and it's common knowledge now, they're scared to death because they don't know if they've done anything wrong or.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's completely respectable. I mean, me and Brian had conversations about it. I myself have lost sleep over this and not eating. I mean, look, some of it's from working out, but I lost 10 pounds from that to now, and I would attribute some of it to being this. It's because it is a sizable amount of funds, and when you are in a position like you know, me and Travis are, we're appointed, right? Like we almost like the people don't elect us, right? So when it comes to public funds, you try to be as good a steward of public funds as you can, because at the end of the day, some individual had to go offshore for 30 days on a rig, or somebody had to get on the back of a garbage truck every day, or some individual had to, you know, do a job that is vital to keeping this parish alive so that I can then do the job I have now. And that's a huge, you know, I think a huge stress factor for anyone in government. It's not talked about, right? There's always this, you know, negative connotation that, you know, we kind of sit in this ivory tower and we take the funds and just spend it on whatever we want or line our own pockets. And, you know, I can't speak for every individual in government, but I know I can speak for not only the directors I've had conversations with, the employees I've had conversations with, Travis and his team that I've had conversations with, but like my entire department. Like it's a very well known thing in our department. Before you spend $1, would you pay for it yourself out of your own pocket? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're doing. Because we're all taxpayers here.
Well,
So-
can I say that's an accusation that I've heard? I've worked for 8 parish presidents. I've heard that accusation
Yeah.
about every parish president. And in fairness to the past administration,
I've heard that about every
some
parish
people
president.
run and always say, well, there's been misuse of funds, but I've never, and if somebody has, they've got arrested or
Or they
they've
have-
been misuse of funds, they've been
I
arrested.
mean, there's an area that's just up to the north of us that gets embroiled in these kind of investigations all the time. If you do it, it's very well known, because I think what a lot of people don't understand is you have a finance director who is pretty much a CPA, right? Certified, has to get through these. I don't think any finance director hides this for a parish president for any way, shape, or form. I don't think they would not only offer up their livelihood, but then their license to practice and what they, spent so many years working up to. I don't think I've never met a finance director I'd be willing to do that for any parish president. But I've heard that about every parish president I've been under, or every parish president I've lived in a parish of through all of Louisiana. Like I've never not heard that about a parish president. And I would say that I think when it comes to parish funds, the citizens should know at a minimum, they take it severely harder, not only from the parish president, but everyone down. I don't know of a single person who was involved in this that did not take it extremely hard, who was not stressed about it for these last 3 months, who was not a constant reminder, a constant shadow, a constant look over their shoulder of, when does an investigation finish? Do we recover all the funds? When does this come out? How does everybody look at my part in this when it comes out? Like you said, one of the things you said here was, what did this happen from inside, right? That's the same fear of those employees is, what if they think it was me? Right? If I put, and through this whole thing, I put myself in every individual's shoes before I made every individual decision from an IT standpoint and how we deal with this. I was like, what they went through in their mind dealing with this, and then what they're dealing with now. And I've talked to these employees since. It's stressful. They're still stressed about it today. I think today when the article did come out, it was a lot of that stress was alleviated because now it's out.
Well,
And we don't-
and that's why I asked the question. I have a big heart for people who work for other people, who take directions from other people. And if your boss tells you to do something, you're going to do it because you're
Yeah.
trying to be a good employee. It may scare you to death. You may not eat for 3
Yeah.
months through this whole process. And then I don't want anybody having a nervous breakdown or, God forbid, doing something crazy because they can't handle the stress when all they were trying to do was their job.
Yeah, I mean, nothing was nefarious was from the individual who first got the email to Candace signing it. There was nothing nefarious amongst all of them. I mean, I want to talk about the exact process of how this happened. And I hope people understand this. An employee was on vacation checking parish email for parish work to do a parish project on vacation, and was still like, I'm going to check my parish emails, make sure nothing's holding up for me. Right. And they see this, and to them, they know they have to pay this invoice, and they're thinking to themselves, oh my God, I missed this. Oh my God. And then there becomes this look, and that was what was so sophisticated. They actually inserted a fake email into the first email they sent to make it look like they had missed the first invoice payment. So it actually looked like the second email, which created a sense of urgency, which is what these scammers try to do. They create a sense of urgency that you did something wrong or you missed something.
What did they say? Something like, you missed your payment? We're waiting on it?
Hey, we sent this invoice to you. I think it was a month beforehand. I haven't received a response from you. I don't know the details, but it was the gist of it is we haven't received a response for you. Can I know where we at in getting this paid? And that employee who doesn't want to hold up the work to be done. We want this project, right? DOTD's covering 90% of this project. Anytime you can get tax dollars back into the parish, you jump on it as fast as you can, as hard as you can, and move it along the road as fast as you can. So I think the
Agreed.
the
Everybody would agree
desire
with that,
to want to do something for the residents and please the residents is what put this employee in a sense of urgency, because this person was so worried about doing what was right for the parish and getting this project for the parish, for the people, that they moved a little too fast. They got on to the next one, who didn't realize there was a sense of urgency, because you see the email, they move a little too fast, and then it's a trickle effect of everyone just moving a little too fast. And granted, I don't think we'll ever have this issue again. I hope we don't. We have severely ramped up our cybersecurity training for this. I felt like we already did a lot of cybersecurity training before this, but I tasked Brian with ramping it up as much as possible, and we had a lunch and learn with about 50 to 60 employees a couple of weeks ago, just on cybersecurity and phishing emails, and he did a wonderful job. It was a
Can I do a public record request on the air? Can you give me the transit information?
Yeah, we can.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah, we can. I can get the details of
That way,
that.
so everything, or anything that was, breached the system would be,
Yeah.
just so everybody could see it. Just real quick before we wrap up, I've been talking to a lot of council people. Naturally, they're upset. Have you spoken to any?
Yeah, I've spoken to a few. I won't say any names, because we did have conversations in confidence about the whole subject. I've explained my side of all of this and how it went down and what we did. And every single one of them's response was, I really wish you would have notified us, right? Like, let's get an executive session and talk about it. And my response to them has been, yeah, like, I wish I can go back in time and redo it. But unfortunately, this is what we did. This is where we at. I can promise you it'll never happen in the future. But I hope that we never get caught in this kind of situation in the future. We're going to put whatever we can, any efforts we can, to make sure this never happens again.
And Chief, you'll keep us posted on the arrest and all the information that comes through.
I think the name's like Lynn, last name NGO. I'll give you a shot at the pronunciation. I'm not sure. But like I said, I don't know if there's going to be any more arrests made, because, like I said, the evidence that we had is dwindling. One of the next, the other hopes we have is to maybe help some of these other victims bring closure, because it looks like we were the only ones that were successful in targeting the suspect.
But when it moved the counts, just real quick, when she moved the money real quick, no way to tell where that went, because is there a possibility it came back locally or somewhere around here?
So when you go after that, you're trying to identify the account information, okay? So you identify the account information, you see it going out, okay? We have what we need at that point in time to get that arrest warrant. So anything we're going to do from this point forward is going to be extra. And we're when I like going the extra mile, because we're going to try and bring closure to all of these people that they victimized. And this is I talked to my detective probably, in the last 3 or 4 days about this, just brainstorming, because I enjoy being chief, right? But I really love being a detective, and I kind of miss it at times. And that's probably some of the best times. And if anything, they may think I'm micromanaging. No, kind of like I still miss it, like going get involved. So I like going and bounce ideas off of him. And he said he's gonna look at it and see if we can get enough a search warrant to get those records. But like I said, again, we're dealing with, you got to get a local judge, then we have to go to Alabama, then we're dealing with a Florida bank. So look, we issue it today, we're not finding out for another couple months who it is. And what happens is it goes to their subpoena compliance, and it's just slow.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. You can come on, you here every week.
Yeah.
I might ask you every week, any updates,
Oh no, I'm good with it. You can ask me anything, anytime. And if I can tell you, I will. and you know me. And if
Yeah.
I can't tell you, I'm gonna tell you, I can't talk about that right now.
And
And if
Robbie,
you-
and I talked to
and
Robbie
if-
just
and
about
if
every
you'd
day with
asked-
other
Yeah.
stuff.
And if you'd have asked me about this investigation 2 weeks ago, my answer would have been, look, I really can't talk to you about it right now because we still had to question the suspect. We weren't at that point. We weren't at that point. I would have say next week, just because of where the evidence is at, I would say next week we probably would have been going public with this.
Okay. Robbie, anything else before we wrap up that
Just
needs to come out that you would like to get off your chest?
I really want to give the employees who were involved in this, a huge kudos. I know it's rough. I know it's been a rough couple of months for them. Again, hindsight 2020, we speak to the council members and get this out much sooner than this. And I think Travis agrees. We go into executive session and we talk this out with council members, at least the Budget and Finance Committee, which, granted, the committees are consisted of all council members. But we hope to be better. You learn from your mistakes, you get better from them, and just gonna pray we could just be on top of it from here on out, and this never happens again.
Yeah, and just for the, go ahead, Chief.
And whenever we talk about going into executive session, and I'd have to go back and check, and maybe you could tell me, I don't know if we've ever had to go into executive session and discuss a criminal investigation. So
I think they have.
they have. Yeah. So it would definitely been before my time.
Yeah.
So
I can remember a couple of them.
Yeah. So that's one thing to look at. And another thing to look at, as long as we have humans are going to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And but what I can tell you is I think everybody in parish government just wants what's best for the community, including the police department.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate to the public that we did invite the parish president to come on. And I don't know, you know his schedule better than I do.
Yeah, he's on his way to Covington right now for a legislative meeting.
So he, I guess, told you to come and the chief to come.
Yeah.
I want to make that, but parish president's always invited to come on. Miss Malden's invited to come on and answer questions, but I'm sure this will be discussed at an upcoming meeting or whatever, just for safeguard. I appreciate y'all coming and being candid with me and sharing some time. We spent a little over an hour on it, so
It's a little more than 7 minutes.
yeah, you're right. Some things need a little more explanation, right? But thank y'all very much, and I appreciate y'all coming on board.
Thank you.
All right. We'll take a break here, and we'll be back with more. Don't go away. This segment was brought to you by Waits and Downer, attorneys at law.